not surprised.
Hi, I'm Danielle Jones, and this is Cold Camp Tough TV. Today I'm here with Bethany Koontz, a medical student at West Virginia University. Thank you for coming today. I'll ask you a few questions.
Okay.
When did you decide you wanted to be a doctor?
I have always kind of known that I wanted to pursue medicine. When my brother was a baby, he had a liver transplant, and I always grew up around all of his doctors and going to his appointments and other things. So I always kind of had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do medicine. And then as I was in high school, like 9th or 10th grade, I took anatomy, and I loved all my science classes, chemistry, biology. And so that kind of really solidified my interest in the sciences. And so it just seemed like a natural progression to pursue like a pre-med degree and then go to medical school.
How did you choose where you wanted to go for undergrad?
So to go to undergrad, I was always cognizant of the fact that I knew that I wanted to go to medical school after. And so medical school is quite expensive.
Yes.
So I always knew that I was going to stay in state for undergrad. One, because I felt like the education that I would have gotten at WVU or Marshall would have been adequate enough for me to pursue medicine, and also because of the scholarships that I got to stay in state. So I actually went to Marshall for undergrad, which is only about 20 minutes from where I'm from. And I was given, I had the Promise Scholarship and a few other scholarships as well, and so it was practically no cost for me to go. So that's why I chose to stay at Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Did you find your college classes harder than your high school classes?
So college is definitely a different beast than high school classes. I would say in high school you have somebody like telling you need to be here at this time, you need to turn in your homework at this time, we have a test on Friday, we have this and this. You have somebody like checking you and telling you like where you need to be, what you need to do. In college, you don't have that security blanket, I guess. Like, you have to be on top of your stuff. You have to know your deadlines. You have to have pretty good time management skills in order to like get all your requirements done. So I don't think it's necessarily harder than high school in the sense of content, but I think that it's harder in the fact that you've never really had to be responsible for your own schedule.
So you don't have like the guide throughout, like.
Right, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, there are sometimes up to like 100 kids in your class at Marshall, let alone like bigger schools. If you go to it, you could have like hundreds and hundreds. But so there's not a professor there holding your hand telling you need to get this done, you need to not do this, you need to study. So you have to kind of just have that discipline to know like, this is the time I need to study, this is the time I can hang out with friends, this is the time that I have, other responsibilities. So
a lot of like self-management.
So a lot of self-discipline, I would say, and extreme time management. I think that is the best way to be successful in college.
Were you nervous for taking the MCAT?
So yes, I think it would be natural if you were not nervous, because I always think like if you care about something, you're going to be a little bit nervous.
I agree.
So if you weren't nervous, that'd be a little concerning. Yes, I was nervous for the MCAT, but I felt like I did enough in my preparation for it that it would be okay. Doesn't mean I was not very, very, very stressed for a few months. So I started studying for the MCAT. So I was a third year in college, so I was a junior, and I was scheduled to take it in May, and I started studying, I would say like at the end of January, and had a few months, and like you make your schedule and your plan and you get your resources. And then you schedule out like how many practice questions you're going to do a day, how many flashcards you're going to do a day, what notes you're going to do, that kind of stuff. And then you spread it out over a certain amount of time. And then each day you learn a little bit more, you do a little better, and it gets less nerve-wracking as you get closer to the date.
More prepared.
Yeah, but you have it's similar to what I was talking about with undergrad. You have to be the one to make that schedule and stick to it. And sometimes it's a little easier said than done because, life happens. You're still studying for your college classes because you don't usually get, like, time off to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing it, like concurrently while you're doing your other classes. So it's not crazy. It's just another thing that you have to do.
Something else to add to the
Yes,
list.
it is.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide what medical school you wanted to go to?
So I only applied to Marshall and WVU for medical school because I knew that I wanted to stay in state because, again, it's not all about money. It isn't, but in-state tuition is significantly cheaper than out-of-state tuition. And am I allowed to say how much it is? So comparatively, like, for me, going to WVU, it's around like $30,000 a year. But my out-of-state friends, they pay over $70,000 a year, right? And so if I were to go out of state, it would be sort of like that. I'd be paying almost double, if not more, than the in-state people. So those are two of the medical schools in the state that I thought would give a pretty good education. So I narrowed it down from there and just applied to those two schools. And once I interviewed at both, you'll definitely catch a feeling of how, like, the next 4 years of your life are going to be whenever you're interviewing with the people. And I ultimately decided to go to WVU over Marshall because I just felt like they aligned more with my values and what I wanted to do as a physician. And I felt like they were better equipped to get me where I wanted to be. So I chose to go to WVU.
Okay.
And I'm happy about that.
Did you find your medical school classes harder than your college classes?
So it's similar to what I was talking about high school and college is. It's just like different but cut from the same cloth, if you know what I mean. Because in college, whenever you're doing pre-med, that's another thing we didn't talk about. But when you are deciding what major to have in college, if you are planning to go to medical school, you really need to be strategic on what you pick. Nowadays, most medical schools, they don't have a set list of requirements. When I applied 3.5 years ago, like, there was, like, you had to take biochem, you had to take 2 years of organic, you had to do all this. Now they're kind of moving away from, like, required courses, and now they are, like, recommended courses. And I'm on the admissions committee at my school, so I just know how we work when we look at applicants. And now, like, we are more focused on having, like, a certain amount of BCPM, so biology, chemistry, physics, and math courses. So you need to have, not need to, but we recommend having at least 30 hours of those courses because it just helps you transition into medical school curriculum and such. That's not to say you can't major in something completely different. I have friends who majored in dance. I have friends who majored in art or English and stuff like that, and they do just fine. But they did take those courses to kind of get them already on the right path to have a foundation before they start medical school. And so after that, and you have that foundation, it's a little bit more expedited in medical school. So in college, you would take an anatomy course, for example, and it would be 16 weeks. It'd be a whole semester. My anatomy course was 8 weeks, but it was also not just anatomy. It was anatomy and histology and ultrasound. So it was like a bunch of stuff condensed into a short amount of time. And so while it's the same content that you would get most likely in a college anatomy class. I mean, it was going to be a little bit more advanced just because it's a professional school, but it was just really smushed together. So you had to be on your, like, have your P's and Q's laid out. So in medical school, you basically study, you go to class and you study from 8 in the morning until like 5 at night. Like, it's a full-time job. Like in college, you go to class, you have class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have class on Tuesday, Thursdays, and it's like an hour and a half, whatever. And then you have the rest of the day to do whatever you want. You can catch up on other classes and stuff like that. You can wait. You can have homework that's due, or like an assignment that's due on Friday, wait until Wednesday. You can't really delay things in medical school. You wake up and you go to class, or you don't. You don't have to go to class. But you do your content for the day, and then you study the rest of the day. Not to say you don't have a life or can do things, but it's just like you have to be super disciplined. So it's like high school, you have people like kind of holding your hand. College, you're on your own. You're doing, what you need to do, but you have a little bit of leeway and as for like time and stuff. And then medical school, you are completely on your own. And if you do not take it seriously, or you don't use your time well, then you fall completely behind. And that's when things get difficult. I don't think many people fail or like have to drop out of medical school because the content is so hard. I think it's because it's a lot at once.
They aren't like ready for it.
Yeah. So everybody, when you transition to medical school, there's always a little bit of a transition, like grace period, I would say, where you find like how you want to study and how you learn best, because what worked for you in undergrad may not work for you at all in medical school. And so the first few weeks you're really learning, like, what are you, someone that likes to go to class? Are you someone that likes to stay home and listen to the lectures on 2.5 times speed? Are you someone that uses like Anki cards, which you should use Anki? Or do you like handwritten flashcards? I don't recommend that. 1 trees and then 2 is so much time. Or do you like to study alone? Do you like to study with other people? You just find that kind of approach that you do best at. So to sum it up, yes, it's harder, but it is harder in like a not
the material, so yeah.
Exactly. Not the subject or the material. It's more so just the pace. Yeah. My dean, like during our orientation, he described to us, he was like, it is like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant, like while the hydrant is like blowing water at you. Like it's just, you can't. Or he always said like, you have to eat so many pancakes a day. So you have to eat 3 pancakes a day. Doesn't seem like much, but if you wait and you don't eat those pancakes, they just build up the next day. And then if you do that for 3 days, then you have 10 pancakes to eat like at once, and that's way harder than it is if you would have eaten those few pancakes each day at a time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's a little weird
really
analogy,
good, actually.
But that always stuck with me whenever he said that, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to eat 20 pancakes at once, so I'm gonna just do a little bit at a time.
Start with you.
Yeah.
So what specialty have you chosen?
I am applying for general surgery. So, yes.
How did you choose that specialty?
I always knew that I wanted to do surgery just because of, my brother and his transplant, and then other family members with their like medical problems and surgeries that they had. And I always was like, very interested in it. And then you like watch Grey's Anatomy as a kid, and you just like are like, oh, that seems so fun, like I wish I could do that. So I always like kind of knew that I wanted to do surgery when I entered medical school. But the one thing that I made sure to like keep in the back of my mind was that like I want to go into every single subject like with an open mind. I don't want to close my mind off to any opportunity, because you never know like what a specialty is really like until you are kind of in it and you see it like for days at a time. So like the first 2 years which the first 2 years of medical school are the basic science portion. So you are not generally in the hospital very much. Like at our school, we do shadowing, and then we have like a mentor that we go and we do like certain like history and physical skills. So you're in the hospital and you see patients, but it's not like a regular thing. And you are in the classroom basically for 2 years straight. And then in your third year, you do your clinicals. So in your third year is where most people really decide what they want to go into. And when I had my surgery rotation, it was my third rotation. I had done family medicine and internal medicine prior to that. And once I had my surgery rotation, like there was no going back. It was very much solidified in the fact that I wanted to do surgery, and I wanted to be in an OR, and I wanted to do all the things, which is a lot more than just being in an OR and what you see on Grey's Anatomy. Unfortunately, that is not the reality. That's like the really exciting, fun parts, but there's a lot more to surgery than just that. So I would say for me, I kept my open mind until I did surgery, but then once I did my rotation after that, like nothing else really compared. So you have all the rest of your rotations. I still went into each of those, like I want to learn everything that I can in each of them. I want to see what I can take away from it, even though I don't want to do psychology or psychiatry, or I don't want to do OB, but I want to see what those specialties can teach me that I can take back to surgery. So after that is like kind of smooth sailing. And then fourth year, you do more targeted classes. You do like, okay, you want to do psychiatry. Okay, so you're going to do all these different psychology and psychiatry classes. But yeah, so I chose surgery. And it's never too late to choose a different specialty, because you might go into medical school. You might even go into third year thinking that you're going to do OB-GYN, and then when you get to your OB-GYN, you're like, oh, I like it, okay, and then you go to psychiatry and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this more, like this is just where I fit. So always keep an open mind. Don't go into anything, but especially don't go into medical school having a predetermined path, because then you might close yourself off to something that you were really meant to do, or something that would make you even more happy, or that you could leave a bigger mark on the world than what you originally thought.
Nice. Can you tell us about the matching process?
Oh, yes, I can. So this is not like verbatim what it is, but like from my perspective of somebody who is like currently in the matching process. So you will finish your third year in your classes and stuff, and that's when you decide really what specialty you want to do. And then you have a few months to like get your applications ready. There's a lot more that goes into an application than you think. You have letters of recommendation that you need to get. You have experiences that you put in. There's like what is it called? It's like ERAS, like ERAS. It's the portal that you submit all your stuff through. So you have to like put what experiences were most meaningful to you, explain why they were meaningful to you. You have to have personal statements as to like why you want to do medicine, why you want to do this specialty, why you would be a good resident, why basically you're trying to sell yourself to the programs and to say, oh, you should pick me because X, Y, and Z. Then the letters of recommendation, and then the hardest part is actually figuring out what programs you want to apply to, because you're going to spend a significant portion of the next however many years of your life at that program. So you kind of want to know, would it be a good fit for me? Do you think that they produce good doctors? Do you think that your like wellness would be a priority to them? That kind of stuff. And like for me, surgery is a 5-year residency. Mm-hmm. Some are 3, like internal medicine and family medicine and stuff like that. But for someone that 3 years is still a lot of time, but for 5 years for me, I'm like, I need to know exactly like what I'm getting myself into. So you'd research the programs, and then there'll be a date, and the date will be looming over your head for months, and that's like the day that your applications like are sent to the programs. And so this year they were like September 24th or something like that. And so you upload your stuff, and then it goes out into the stratosphere, and they get it. And then there's another date. For some specialties for surgery, there's a universal release date of like when programs can start offering interviews. And this year, I know this one, surgery was October 23rd. So on October 23rd, they were then allowed to like send invitations out to applicants. So after that, you think it gets better. After that, it does get better. I'm just kidding. You will get your interviews, and you'll schedule them for, usually it's October through January is like interview season. And so just depending on what specialty and which programs you apply to. So you'll schedule your interviews, and then you will do the interviews. You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So you're trying to get a sense of like, would I be happy at this program? Would this be a good fit? And all that. Then come February, you are going to do your rank list. So the matching process is supposed to benefit the applicant. So it's supposed to benefit me. So if I say interview at 14 places, I have a list of 1 through 14 that I can pick, and you're going to rank the programs. Like your first rank is like, what program do you want to go to the most? So you put that there. And then you're like, okay, what's the next one? And you go down the list, and you rank the programs that you interviewed at, not the ones you applied to, because you're not always going to get all of the places you applied to give you an interview. So where you interview, you rank them, the programs, and then the program will rank the people that they interviewed. So they'll say, okay, their number one pick was me, hopefully. Their number one pick is me, so I'll be number one. And then they'll go down the list of however many people they interviewed, how many they want to rank. And so if my number one that I put with my number one program ranked me number one, then we match. Okay, so it's why it's called a matching process, because I need to want the program needs to want me. But it benefits the applicant, because if that first program did not rank me high, then it goes down to my next one, and it tries to match you with the program that you want. It just depends on what they ranked you as well. But they'll go down each of your programs that you list, and they will try to match you with the program that you want.
So it doesn't just benefit like them picking, you also get to have your part in the process.
Yeah, and they say that it benefits us because they use an algorithm. I don't know. So basically, each program has a number of spots, a limited number of spots. For example, one of the programs I know, they have 6 spots for a categorical first-year general surgery resident. So they have 6 spots that they need to fill. And so once they get past those 6 spots, they're going to rank the rest of the people. And if I did not rank the person like very high, and I am high on their list, I'm not going to automatically go to that program that ranked me high because I didn't rank them high, right? So it tries to benefit the applicant, and that's what I've been told by many people. So I'll let you know in March if that pans out for my case. But that's kind of how the matching process works. And then you matriculate and you go there, and hopefully it's the best 5 years of your life.
Are you nervous about your matching process?
Oh, can you not tell? I'm nervous. It's like I said earlier, like if you care about something, you're going to be a little bit nervous. Like that shows that you care. So I don't really think of it as a negative thing. Yeah, I'm nervous. But I know that like the education that I got at my school, and I know just like the skills that I've learned over the past 3.5 years, like I know that that's going to pay off, and I am faithful. I have faith, right? I have faith that it'll work out the way it's supposed to. And, you know, at the end of the day, so there is a possibility that you do not match, right? So you can go through medical school for 4 years, and you can pass, and you can do whatever, and you can get a degree in medicine. So when you graduate, you will be an MD, but that does not guarantee that you have a residency spot, right? And if you don't have a residency spot, then you cannot be a physician. So you have to go to residency, right? So it's always one after the other. Like in high school, they're like, oh, you go to college and you get a college degree and it'll be better. It will be, yes, it'll be great. But then people that want to do a professional school, like after that, they're like, okay, if I just get into medical school, then I'm set. And, you know, at the time it is. Like you get into medical school and you're like, oh, I made it, I'm set. Like this is where I need to be. And it's great. But then you have another step and you're like, okay, now I have to get into residency. Residency is pretty much like the last big thing, because then you have to be an attending and you have to get a job after that. But your residency is a continuation of your training. Like that's where you're, like medical school, you learn how to be like a doctor in the sense as you learn like all the organ systems, and you learn like how to take a history and physical and how to do basic skills and things like that. But during your residency is where you actually learn how to be a surgeon. You learn how to be an OBGYN. You learn how to be a psychiatrist. So there is always the possibility that you do not match, but that's not the majority. That's a small amount of people. And then if you don't match in the first round, you can SOAP or scramble, and that's where you will like do supplemental interviews for places that didn't fill all their spots. So like how I was saying, the programs have their list of people and they have 6 spots to fill, whatever. If that program didn't fill all 6 of those spots, then that spot's still open, so then you can go back and you can during the same week. So match week starts on a Monday, and you figure out, they give you an email and says you matched. They don't tell you where you matched. They say you matched, or they say you did not match. You need a SOAP, which is like supplemental something. I don't know. I'm trying not to look too much into it because hopefully that's not the case. But so you can SOAP, and then that week you'll do interviews, and then on the Friday of match week is when you will figure out where you matched to. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you said you were nervous in a good way, so.
Oh, I am. I'm nervous in a good way. Yeah, I'm nervous in a good way in the sense that I do think that it'll work out the way it needs to be. Okay.
What do you think prepared you the most?
For what?
For where you are now. Like through college into med school.
That's an interesting question. I do think one thing that prepared me, like in college going into medical school, was having a lot of like, not a lot, but having quality mentors and people that you could go to ask for advice and to ask, you know, you always need people to write letters of recommendation. You always need people, you know, to tell you this is a good program, this isn't a good program. I think that you would be good at this. I don't know if you would be good at this. And having somebody there to kind of guide you, even if people that haven't been to medical school before, like there are still people that have, you know, really great opinions and push you kind of towards where you need to go. I also think that the experiences that I did during undergrad kind of prepared me for medical school in the sense that I did a lot of volunteer experiences. I worked at the Ronald McDonald House and did that I worked at the Ronald McDonald House and I volunteered there for years. I did hospice. I shadowed different physicians for a significant amount of time. I also was fortunate enough to work in a neuroscience lab where I kind of was exposed to like a more scientific professional environment that, you know, it's a little different than going to medical school and just doing that, but it was also like there were standards that you have to meet. There were expectations, responsibilities. You had to work with other people in a professional setting. And, the people that I met there kind of really did shape my life going forward and gave me great advice. So I think just doing the things which you need to do to get into medical school, regardless. We didn't talk about this. Unfortunately, I don't think it's unfortunately, but for some people, grades are not everything, right? Like, they're a very important part of your application to get into medical school and also to get into residency. Grades are important. Like, you need to do well. You need to take those classes that will help you in the long run for medical school. You need to have good scores on the MCAT and that kind of thing. But you also have to show that you're a well-rounded applicant, and you need to do those volunteer community service is huge, especially for my school. I know for Marshall as well. Community service is a big deal because the mission of WVU is to prepare students to go out into West Virginia and provide great health care to West Virginians. So they want to know that you have like a community service centered like mind. They also want you to research is great because in the field of medicine, research is everything. Research is important in the fact that you just want to be involved in some type of research. It doesn't really matter. Like, I was in the neuroscience lab. I'm not pursuing neurosurgery or neurology, but that didn't matter. It still gave me like exposure to that world. So they want to see that you're involved in the community, involved in research. What else is there? Patient care is always great. When we look at applications, we look at those kind of things. Research is great. Community service is the most important thing to me. And then, have you worked in a nursing home? Have you shadowed? I mean, people in college don't have jobs a lot of the time that have to do with healthcare, which is completely fine. You don't have to be a nurse before. You don't have to be a nursing assistant. You don't have to do any of those things. But you need to have been exposed to healthcare in some capacity, because you also want to know if that's where you're meant to be. Some people might graduate high school and go to college and think, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. They get into medical school without doing a lot of shadowing or working in the healthcare system, and then they get to their third year clinicals and they're like, oh, this is not for me. And that is not the time that you want to realize that patient care is not for you after you've paid 2 years of tuition and have gone through all the stress and like the studying and all the things that you go through medical school. You want to kind of know beforehand, before you get into it too deep, what you're getting into. So I think that's the best. Just expose yourself as much as possible. Surround yourself with people that, can give you good advice, unbiased advice, and just, work yourself to get there, I think. If you want it bad enough, you'll do what you need to do to get in.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming and interviewing today.
You're welcome.
This is Cold Camp Tough TV. Thanks for watching.
Woo!